we're here to talk about unprofessionalism.
Unprofessionalism,
Or
that's
professionalism, I can't really tell.
There's conflicting views on this match.
Yeah.
And one of them is absolute bullshit, clearly. So this is from the 9th of February, 1998. And it's the more infamous over the years match between Goldberg and Stephen, I'm now called William, Regal.
Yeah.
I said Regal really oddly.
Regal.
Regal. What they have with Goldberg is they luck into something that they didn't really know they were doing. And what happens is he's a big rookie. He's, at this point when he has this match, he's been going for less than a year. And just because he's green, they've been giving him quick matches. But they kind of go, this guy's got something. There's something about this guy that's very charismatic. He can't go for long in the ring. So let's just have him do quick, short matches. And that will be explosive and fun.
Yeah.
And people really, really, really like this explosive guy who comes out, destroys people, and then fucks off.
Right.
They love it.
Yeah.
As time goes on, people begin noticing he's never lost. And they just go, this is fantastic. And WCW, like with the Undertaker streak at WrestleMania, they don't realise what's happening at first. They could have really lost the streak at any point. And actually, when you look through the records, it's not a perfect streak. What's happened is in the last sort of 7 months, Goldberg has been training at the power plant. He has then gone through to have a load of matches. In his 7th match, he's beating the Barbarian, that sort of thing. He's beating lower ranked professionals.
Yeah.
Sergeant Buddy Lee Parker, Hugh Morris, Scotty Riggs, Bobby Eaton, and Brad Armstrong. And he's beating most of them in under a minute. The Barbarian match is the longest match he's had up to this point, which lasts just over 3 minutes. I did notice when you look through, there's a couple of matches where he won by DQ in the early days, where they just didn't, there was no big grand plan for this. And it could have gone wrong at any point. But by the time we reach February 1998 and this match, they've realised people are really behind this idea about this explosive guy coming out, winning in seconds and going back home. And everyone is on board with that. Apart from one person, Pete. And that person is Stephen Regal. At this period, this is not a golden moment in William Regal's career. He's a bit out of shape in this match.
He's a picture of shit in maroon, isn't he? He really is.
He's got a belly on him. He's wearing the leotard. The leotard is a classic thing when people go, oh, God, I look terrible. I'm really embarrassed. I'm going to wear a leotard and no one will notice. As soon as the leotard goes on, the only person who's allowed to wear the leotard because they don't look shit is Mr. Perfect. Yeah. Everyone else, leotard. big warning sign. But things are going really badly for him behind the scenes. At the moment, he's had a good run through WCW. He's coming off the boil here. He's beginning to slip down the card. He's also got a lot of substance abuse issues. And he's just recently been suspended from WCW, I think for 7 weeks, because on a flight back from Japan, he got so off his face on something that he ended up urinating on an air stewardess, believing he was in the toilet.
Right, okay.
The plane stopped on the way back from the USA in Alaska solely to kick him off before it then took off again.
Wow, that's expensive.
Yeah, he was then arrested for that, and WCW suspended him pretty immediately. So he's not in a great position here.
I've seen wrestle him a few times, but mainly in the kind of skits and stuff, and the sketches. He's good at the sketches.
He's very good at the comedy. That sort of British vaudevillian, end of the pier. He's good friends with lots of people who perform in Blackpool. He's often online just going, you've got to see one of the finest comedians you'll ever see. His name is Bobby Balls, that sort of thing. And he's playing 3 nights at Blackpool's legendary Lucky Horseshoe Casino. It's all that sort of, he likes that old-fashioned end of the pier comedy, which he then does very well in a lot of his wrestling. What they do is they have the match, and this should have been quite simple, but Stephen Regal makes it a little bit more complex.
Yeah, who sat on Willie's English muffins? What upset him so this morning?
It's strange, isn't it? I mean, what you can do is there are 3 different versions of this. One is Goldberg's, one is Stephen Regal's, and one is what you see when you see this match. Yeah. Probably the easiest way to explain it is to start with the match. So it starts very quickly with Regal putting a cravat on Goldberg and just flipping him over onto his back. That's the first offensive move, and Goldberg is already lying on his back on the mat.
Yeah.
And Regal, as he gets up, just kicks him incredibly hard in the back. I mean, absolutely not pulling that kick in any way.
Will Regal be the man to stop the winning streak of the undefeated Bill Goldberg?
How about a textbook takedown by Regal that time?
he starts doing a lot more offense than he should.
Yeah.
For the level that he's at and Goldberg being hot, he then sort of ties him up in a sort of, I think it's a 3/4 full Nelson, and Regal sort of takes his arm a lot. And Goldberg, he's sort of going,
not what I'm about.
Why is that? What's happening here? And you can see him sort of go, I don't quite know. Are we okay? Or are we not okay?
That's always the best things about these kind of shoot matches where it's like, what's happening?
Completely, yeah. Regal knows what's happening because he at no point was looking like, come on. He's doing his thing, whereas Goldberg is just like, I don't know whether this is being mean or this is just something off. I can't work it out. Goldberg suddenly does a really great roll through, really explosive roll through into a sort of heel hook, which must have fucked Regal off when that happens. There's a bit where Mike Tenay, who's on the commentary, just sort of says, oh, you can see that Goldberg really respects Regal, so he's being cautious. He's not. He's not. He doesn't know why Steven Regal is being really unhelpful.
Yeah.
He just can't work it out. This is often portrayed, this match, as Steve Regal went in there and he decided to teach the green Goldberg. He decided to give him a wrestling lesson.
Teach him that, a more technical style of wrestling, because he's quite a limited performer and has remained so throughout his career, one would imagine.
I would say there are like 6 occasions where Goldberg absolutely counters something brilliantly with something that's really surprising, and which Regal, if he could have stopped, probably would have done, and is unable to do so. So there are some sort of odd bits. Now, the worst thing about this is suddenly the crowd just go, this isn't the match that we wanted from Goldberg. We've been really enjoying Goldberg coming out and just exploding like a firework. Yeah. And this is weird. This is all Regal grabbing his arm and holding it, and Goldberg sort of like going, I don't quite know what's happening.
Because he knows if he puts himself too much into a move, Regal will try and hurt him.
Yeah, well, there's a bit where he does a pin, and as he gets off the pin, Steve Regal just kicks him in the face. You're just being a twat. You're just being a real shit. He does a side headlock takeover on Goldberg. Goldberg straight away puts him into a head scissors. And that, again, is the sort of thing about people often say, oh, he really took this green guy and he showed him the ropes and humiliated him and embarrassed him. He doesn't quite do that. Goldberg, actually, as he begins to sort of go, okay, well, are we playing this a little bit hard? I don't know. I'll give it a go too. Goldberg whips him into the ropes. Regal just fucking stops and walks back. And that's the moment I think you just go, that's being a real shit. You're now saying that wrestling doesn't exist because you're actually a hard man. And you're going to be a difficult thing.
Yeah, first power move by Goldberg there.
Regal put the brakes on. Regal tried to headbutt him into the midsection. Regal with a European uppercut. And that just staggered the big guy here. Regal hooks him again.
Regal grabs Goldberg's leg, trips him up. It doesn't look very good. No. But he just wants to get him on the floor.
Yeah.
He does some knees on him, which are obviously not held back very much. Goldberg does a spinning neck breaker, and Regal goes the other way. It all falls apart, and it's really messy. Goldberg goes for a shoulder block, which basically misses. And the whole thing is absolutely falling apart. At that point, the commentator says, we're seeing much more of a wrestling match than we anticipated. I mean, you, me, and Goldberg, both. It really is not what we anticipated. Suddenly, Goldberg hits the spear. The crowd like, fucking yes, brilliant, this is what we want. And he gets his jackhammer and the pin. And it's a weird match, this, because it's often talked about as a shoot match. William Regal went out there and he wanted to say, don't get too big for your boots.
Yeah.
I mean, Goldberg didn't seem to be too big for his boots.
No.
He'd had a rocket strapped to him by the company who went, you've got a gimmick that's really working, keep this up. And Regal is basically standing in the way of it and going, well, I think I should teach him a lesson.
But he's not being hard. Like, he's just being obstructive and he's not doing wrestling.
Completely.
And Regal is known for being a very, 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 very good wrestler.
Yeah.
He knows what he's doing.
This goes for 5 minutes too, and that is 2 minutes longer than Goldberg's longest match to date. So he's gone longer than they possibly should.
Yeah.
The 3 differing opinions on this come from Steven Regal, William Regal, Goldberg, and Eric Bischoff.
Right.
So 3 people who are very much involved in this match,
Yes.
Eric Bischoff being the boss of WCW at the time. In 2014, Steve Regal went on to Stone Cold Steve Austin's podcast, and he said, I'm sick of talking about it. He said he had been suspended for those 7 weeks after he'd been arrested, and so he said, I was on my best behaviour. I didn't go out there to cause a scene. He said he was told that we had to have a 6-minute match, and that Eric Bischoff told him to have a competitive match. He said, okay, so Goldberg and he went through a couple of things. But Regal then says, when we got out there, Goldberg froze up. Right. Which he doesn't. There is no time for Goldberg to freeze up because they're all over each other the whole time.
Yeah, and why did you kick him in the head?
Yeah, well, exactly. Well, William Regal's response to that is, I was working around him trying to get him to do stuff. I didn't hit him any harder than I hit anyone else. always in safe places. He says, yeah, in the face. He said, it's complete divvy talk when people say anything else.
Divvy talk.
Divvy talk. He said that afterwards, Eric Bischoff did go mad with him, which suggests there might have been some sort of like, maybe it was a bit of you being unprofessional. He said, my exact words were to Eric, look, I can't hit myself. I'm trying to get him to do stuff with me. He's not doing anything. And we're all stood there agreeing. He then said that Goldberg agreed it was his fault, but he seems to have forgotten all about that, he says. And he was fired, not because of the match, but he was fired several months later, in Regal's words, because I was a mess out of my mind on drugs, not because of the match. Now, Goldberg, after that interview went out, Goldberg went on to Jim Ross's podcast and he responded. And he said that Steve Regal and Dave Taylor, who was another English performer in WCW, he said they tried to take liberties with him whenever they had the chance. He said, don't take advantage with me on national TV when I'm a piece of clay in your hands and I'll do whatever you want. Not so I can be led around by a guy who's going to kick me in the freaking head when I'm sitting on all fours. And he says, look, I trusted them.
Yeah.
This is something we've talked about before, and it comes in the Saudi shit show, which is the match that Undertaker had with Goldberg, where Undertaker was very quick to basically turn around and go, that fucking Goldberg, ruining all that, giving himself a concussion when I punched him, and then flopping out of my tombstone because making it look like I couldn't lift him up because I was old and feeble. And there is a thing in wrestling where whatever Goldberg, whenever he's wronged, people always go, it's Goldberg who's at fault.
Goldberg being shit,
And he's got a slightly resentful thing about wrestling where he doesn't seem to like it very much. And you can see with stuff like this, when he comes out and says, yes, he was taking liberties with me, it was unprofessional, he could have been nice, but no, he chose not to. There's always that thing where people turn around and go, good on Regal for teaching him a lesson.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's
Every
Goldberg.
single last YouTube comment underneath the YouTube video that I watched was all that. It was just all that, good on him for teaching him a lesson.
Imagine if William Regal had done this to, I don't know, AJ Lee, the small woman wrestler, and he'd gone out there and he's, she froze up, so I had to smack her so hard one of her teeth fell out.
Exactly.
I can't smack my own teeth. Really strange. Eric Bischoff, on his podcast, 83 Weeks, many years later, he talked about the incident between Goldberg and Regal. And really, this should be the last word on the matter. He said that Regal did indeed take liberties with Goldberg. He said that Goldberg needed to dominate that match because of that character that people were getting behind so much. And he said there was absolutely no need at that point in his run for him to be diminished or made to look weak.
Yeah.
Just really, really unprofessional. The last word that I found on this was Stevie Ray, a member of Harlem Heat and brother of Booker T. And he had a sort of video podcast that went out with a guy who was a wrestling fan stroke journalist, difficult to say.
Yeah.
And the clip that I watched about this, it happened to be at the time where he seemed to have lost all patience with the guy who's hosting it. So he said that night, Regal embarrassed Goldberg. He said, I think he crossed the line that night. He said he knew that they were giving Goldberg a big push and he embarrassed him. He really exposed him for not knowing anything. Stevie Ray said he knew that William Regal was going to go out and do that. He said he's not going to lay down for nobody. He's one of these Blackpool, England, go into an alley, knuckle fighting guys. And he then stopped talking about it to get really angrily berate his co-host for drinking apple juice during a conversation they were having. And Stevie Ray had a big thing saying, from now on, you are not to bring in any liquids to the studio. He says you're not going to bring in.
This is another thing.
Yeah.
On Stand Up for Greatness,
Yes.
there will be no more apple juice on the set.
Fair enough.
No more apple juice.
I'll switch to water.
No. I don't even want water on the set. I don't want any liquids on the set. Nothing. So,
Okay.
so do what you have to do before you even come into the set. Come into the studio. Can you do that?
I can do that.
Can you have a little decorum for what we're doing on a daily basis?
Yeah, absolutely.
You're not going to bring in apple juice. You're not going to bring in water, he said, because he said, if you're having a conversation with someone, you do not start drinking libations. He says, and the guy says, yeah, you can during a conversation. He goes, no, not during a conversation. You don't drink during a conversation. That's his big thing.
Instead of drinking, with a glass up to your mouth when we're trying to have a conversation.
We are. This is what people do when they have conversations.
It's not what people do when they're having a conversation. This is the last time you come in with a glass of apple juice, a glass of water, a glass of milk, a glass of cocoa. I don't care what it is. I need you to stay focused on what we're doing.
Very well. All right, Mr. Producer, pass the cigarette.
Don't give him anything. Don't give him anything. But going back to Steve Regal.
Yeah.
Within 30 seconds, Stevie Ray is saying to this guy, it's just like Bill Cosby. He said, Bill Cosby, like how he didn't know what he was doing was wrong. You know, I was like, why has this even gone up? We were talking a second ago about the Goldberg Regal thing, and now there's been this big thing about apple juice, not drinking libations during conversations, and now he's somehow gone to Bill Cosby.
But he didn't know what he was doing. You know, it was kind of like the Bill Cosby thing. He didn't know what he was doing.
Oh,
You know, he's just one of those things, you know, where, you know, everybody doing it, and you're just kind of like, you know, in Bill's case, of course.
I mean, this could be.
When we do podcasts, I may have a cup of tea every now and again in the morning, but I do not need... People bring barrels of water in.
Don't get me started.
Honestly.
Don't get me started.
You're in there for 45 minutes. You could go 45 minutes without drink. We didn't drink in the 80s. We didn't drink in the 90s. We didn't even drink in the 90s.
I don't drink water.
I don't drink water
I don't
either.
drink water. Why am I going to drink water? I can have coffee, tea, or some Diet Coke. I don't drink water. You want me to drink out of a puddle like a pigeon? Like, this new obsession with water,
Fucking
big water
everywhere.
The fucking tube. Goes, have you got a bottle for your journey? Mate, I'm going to be on for 15 minutes.
I'll lick someone's fucking head if I want.
I'm not a fish. A man. I'm a man and I don't need water.
I just don't understand it, Mark.
But by the same token, if I want to drink juice at any time, I will.
I will, yes,
Don't tell me
exactly,
not
yeah.
to. There aren't
We're not the
rules
water-
about when you drink juice, but there are clearly about when you drink water.
Which is not allowed water.
Yeah, never.
Yeah,
Never
don't
drink
need it.
water.
Don't need it in there.
Yeah, so there we go.
Yeah.
It's a match that...
Oh, God, this podcast has turned into that. It's ending with a talk about libations.
We'll get to that in a moment, but Sarah Ferguson very much in the news, the former Duchess of York. There's a rumor circulating, your lordship, that you've been spending some time with her, but obviously not money. Now she's doing tomato juice commercials.
It was like spending the night with a ripped out bloody fireplace. Now,